Hey guys, tonight we begin with something simple, but quietly overwhelming. The feeling that your time isn't truly yours. That maybe, just maybe, each moment you get is on loan, not earned. It's not a punishment or a warning. Just a reminder, gentle and steady, that you live in the middle of something vast and unpromised. You're lying there, the light from your screen or your lamp flickering slightly. Maybe there's a breeze outside. Maybe it's still. And somewhere in that stillness you sense it, not urgency but weight. The weight of being alive, of having this moment right now, when you didn't choose to exist and can't decide when you'll leave. Here's your first soft reality check. You will never control the world, but you can always control how you move through it. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, where are you listening from and what time is it where you are? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You sit with the thought, your time is already borrowed, and maybe for the first time that doesn't scare you, it calms you. You picture a library but not one with books, a cosmic archive filled with shelves of days and hours, each one handed to you not as a guarantee but as a silent agreement. Use this well or don't, but you won't get it back. There's a kind of elegance in that, isn't there? This whole existence on loan, not inherited, not permanent, and that borrowed-ness makes it precious. A glass teacup you cradle more carefully once you know it might shatter. You think back to your day. The things you did with your time, some were meaningful, some were automatic, some you don't even remember now. But they're gone, shelved behind you. And now you're here, you feel your shoulders tense. Why? Because your brain wants to grip time like it's a thing you can hold, like you're supposed to manage it, master it, make the most of it, as if it's a spreadsheet or a bank account. But that's the trick. You were never meant to own your time, only witness it, live it, let it pass through you with grace. That's what Stoics did, not control freaks, but observers of the uncontrollable. Picture Epictetus, once a slave, later a teacher. He owned nothing, not even his freedom for much of his life. But what did he say? You may chain my leg, but not my will. He had no illusions that he controlled the hours. But he chose how to meet each one. What if that's the whole point? You lie back. Your mind offers a familiar resistance. I haven't done enough today, I wasted time, I should have. And you pause, should have what? The guilt of wasted time is built on the illusion that time was something you could possess. But it wasn't. It was never yours. It passed by like wind across your cheek. Not waiting, not judging. There's a paradox here. Once you stop believing you own your time, you stop trying to prove your worth through what you do with it. And in that release, you actually start living more fully. You start feeling your life again. Not rushing it, not spending it like currency, but being in it. It's like sitting beside a river instead of trying to dam it. You can watch it, marvel at it, dip your hand in, but it never stops for you, and it's never yours. You close your eyes and revisit a childhood memory, a day that felt endless, a summer afternoon where you didn't think about time at all, you just were, present, joyful, free. Now here's the irony. We grow up believing freedom means doing whatever we want with our time. But that's not freedom. That's pressure cloaked in freedom's name. The real kind of liberty, knowing the time you have is borrowed and living accordingly. Gently, intentionally, without panic. You think of Seneca now, a man who wrote deeply about time while knowing his own end might come at the emperor's whim. He said, "We are not given a short life, but we make it short." And still, he didn't rush. He didn't clamor, he wrote, he reflected, he slowed down, and so can you. Another paradox then, to honor borrowed time you don't need to do more, you need to grasp less. Let time be what it is, untouchable, unownable, but always arriving. It's like standing in a quiet station as trains pass by. You don't have to board each one. You just need to be aware that they come and go. And you're not late. You're exactly where you're meant to be. You feel your breath now. That's time, too. Not minutes ticking on a clock, but the rhythm of your body, the internal tide that tells you you are still here. Some philosophers still debate whether time is real at all or just a trick of perception. Does it matter? Whether real or illusion, you live inside its current, and you are always midstream. So instead of swimming upstream, what if you float? Tonight, you don't need to fight the clock. You don't need to make meaning. You don't need to prove this day was worth it. It was given, and you received it. That's enough. You think of your past self, how often you tried to control your time, track it, squeeze it, and how much of it you spent feeling like you were behind. But right now, you're not behind anything. You're here. Time doesn't owe you, but it gives you quietly, constantly, like waves on a shore. And maybe it's not about maximizing what you're given, but simply learning how to be with it. Without tension, without story, just presence. So tonight, as you begin this journey, you step into the truth of it. Your time is already borrowed. And that makes it sacred. Let it be so. You're still lying there, not asleep yet, but softer than before. The edge of your thoughts has dulled, and in that quiet place something stirs, a realization that's uncomfortable at first. You don't own the clock. You may wear a watch. Your calendar may be full. You may organize every hour with apps and alarms. But all of that is scaffolding, an illusion of structure wrapped around something deeply indifferent to your plans. You remember that one day, not so long ago, when everything fell apart. Maybe it was a delayed flight, a broken car, a sudden illness, a message that rewrote the shape of your afternoon. You had it all mapped out. The hours were claimed, categorized, even color-coded, but the world didn't care. One small detour and the whole plan unraveled, and instead of feeling free, you felt panicked. Why? Because you believed the time belonged to you. And when it slipped, it felt like theft. But it wasn't. It was just time being time. This is one of the first deep lessons in Stoicism. You are not disturbed by things, but by your judgment of them. You didn't lose time that day. You lost the illusion that you were ever in charge of it. Let that sink in. The clock you check, the deadlines you dread, are tools, but they're not guarantees, and certainly not truths. The only time you ever truly touch is the time you're in. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, just this, right now. And in this now, you get to choose, not what happens, but how you meet it. Think of Marcus Aurelius again. The most powerful man in the world, yet often isolated, often ill, and often surrounded by chaos. He didn't seek control over his schedule. He sought control over his response. He wrote his meditations not to impress others, but to calm his own storm. You can do the same. When you stop fighting time, something strange happens. You start feeling it again, not as a pressure, but as a presence. You might recall how you used to count hours until the weekend, or how you told yourself, "I'll be happy when," but when never arrives, because each new when just shifts the goalposts. A Stoic doesn't postpone peace. You don't have to either. Let's pause here for something quietly absurd. The human brain, the most complex structure in the known universe, spends much of its day being annoyed by schedules. Isn't that funny? That you have the power to ponder mortality and the stars, yet still feel rage at traffic or waiting in line. It's okay. That's part of being human. But part of being wise is laughing at that impulse just a little, letting the irritation pass through you without needing to hold it. That's the gift of knowing you don't own the clock. You're not late. You're not behind. You're just here. Let's try something. Picture your day again, this time without time. No hours, no minutes, just moments, conversations, pauses, movements. How does it feel? Does your body relax? That's the paradox. By releasing time, you return to life. And still, the world will keep asking you to perform time. Show up, be on, hurry up. But inside, you can do something radically different. Slow down. Not outwardly always, but inwardly. A quiet rebellion. A moment from history comes to mind. During a battle in ancient Rome, the general Scipio Africanus famously took a break from strategizing to walk alone through the ruins of Carthage. He paused amid the rubble and quoted Homer, mourning not just the fallen city, but the inevitability that Rome too would one day fall. Imagine that. In the middle of war, surrounded by duty and death, he took time to contemplate the brevity of empires. You can do the same in your own quiet way. In your busy day, take just 30 seconds to remember this hour isn't yours. It was given. A rental, not a purchase. And that makes you less frantic, not more. Because if it's borrowed, you don't waste it by failing to optimize it. You honor it by being present, by being here. Sometimes the most radical thing you can do is breathe. Feel your breath right now. That's your rhythm. Not the tick of the clock, not the pings of your phone, just breath. The only true timer you carry. There's another quiet truth here: you'll never get everything done. Ever. And that's not a flaw, it's a design. Even the most organized Stoic, someone like Seneca who valued clarity and preparation, understood this. He still died with unfinished work, unread scrolls, unwritten thoughts. That's not tragic. That's natural. And here's where some philosophers disagree. Is the idea of controlling time a necessary illusion for order? Or is it a cage we should dismantle? Maybe both. You don't have to throw out your calendar, but you can hold it lightly. See it not as a contract with the universe, but as a sketch. A map that helps you walk, not a territory you're forced to obey. You are not a prisoner of time. You're a witness to it. That distinction changes everything. When you remember that, you can release the guilt of a day that didn't go as planned. You can forgive yourself for being tired. You can close the laptop, turn off the lights, and whisper to your mind, enough for now. You don't owe the world your exhaustion. You don't owe your schedule your soul. So tonight, as you drift further into stillness, let this truth guide you. You don't own the clock, but you do own your attention. You own your choice to soften, to breathe, to rest. And in doing so, you reclaim the only time that ever mattered: this moment. Let that be enough. You've begun to notice it now, that spaciousness. A kind of inner hush that opens when you stop gripping so tightly to the hours. It's not the silence of absence, but the silence of presence. You are here. You are not rushing. You are letting be. And in that stillness, something deeper emerges. The truth that you are not promised another day. Let that land. Not in a dramatic way, not as fear, but as clarity. As the gentle flicker of a candle you didn't know you were carrying. You think about your mornings. How easily they begin with assumption. I have time. But where is that time written? What contract did you sign that said you'd wake up again? There isn't one. And strangely, that realization doesn't fill you with dread. It fills you with something quieter, a kind of reverence. Like walking through an ancient forest, knowing the trees are older than memory. This is where Stoicism walks hand in hand with the ultimate acceptance, the awareness of death. Not in gloom, but in wisdom. Memento mori. Remember, you will die, not as a warning, but as an invitation to live while you can. You remember hearing once about a Japanese samurai who practiced death every morning. He would imagine being struck down in battle, his body left on the field. And then he would go make tea, laugh with his friends, write poetry, live. Isn't that something? The acceptance of death wasn't a weight on him. It was a sharpening, a lightness. Because when death is real to you, pettiness disappears. You don't waste time arguing about things that won't matter in a week. You stop measuring life in likes and wins. You start measuring it in depth, in attention. Maybe that's why Marcus Aurelius, amid the burden of running an empire, often reminded himself in his journal, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. You could leave life right now. That's not meant to alarm you. It's meant to anchor you. And here's where the paradox returns. By letting death in, you stop dying every day. Because so much of what drains your life force is the illusion that you'll always have another chance. You postpone joy, you delay apologies, you defer rest, and all the while the days pass. But when you remember the impermanence of everything, even this breath, you begin to move differently. You don't cling, you don't perform. You simply exist with more honesty. There's a small joy in brushing your teeth slowly, in folding laundry like it matters, in smiling at someone even if they don't smile back. You realize, this might be the last time I do this. And it doesn't make you morbid. It makes you present. Some philosophers argue whether accepting death actually brings peace. Others say it just adds more complexity to life. But maybe the truth isn't in the theory, it's in the practice. You lying there tonight can try the simplest practice of all. Imagine this is your final night, not in panic, not in grief, but in gratitude. If it were, what would matter? That text you haven't answered? Maybe not. That one thing you're worried people think of you? Likely not. That person you love but haven't said it to in a while? Yes. That breath you just took, slow and quiet? That too. This is the strange beauty of mortality. It shrinks the nonsense and expands the sacred. It's like the focus narrows, but what's inside the focus glows brighter. You think of nature now, how nothing clings to permanence. The flower doesn't complain when it wilts. The tree doesn't mourn its leaves. And yet everything renews, not because it wants to, but because it simply does. You can live like that. You can practice dying not to be dark, but to be awake. You start by releasing the grip on what you think you're owed. You're not owed tomorrow, but you have now. And that's breathtaking. And funny in its own absurd way, how humans make bucket lists, chase dreams, obsess over legacy, while often forgetting to sit and drink water slowly, to feel the texture of a bedsheet, to look at the moon without needing to photograph it. So tonight, do that. Look at something ordinary with the eyes of someone who knows it might not return, not to make it precious, but to let it be seen. You might notice how everything softens then. The room, your body, your thoughts, as if the moment realizes you're finally in it. Seneca once said, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life, not to scare ourselves, but to cut through the noise." When you live like that, not as a game, but as a practice, you become hard to offend, hard to distract, hard to throw off center, because you've already accepted the biggest truth of all: this doesn't last. And that somehow makes everything more tender, not in a sentimental way, but in a way that lets you hold things loosely, people, plans, even yourself. So as you lie here breathing, you don't need to fear death. You've already made peace with it. You don't push it away. You nod at it. And in return, it gives you something: clarity. Clarity that reminds you this moment matters, not because it leads to something, but because it is something. That's how you live while dying. And tonight, that's enough. The air has shifted now. It feels thicker but not heavy, more like velvet than stone. You're not chasing sleep anymore. You're letting it arrive like mist curling slowly over a field at dawn. And as it comes, another thought lingers. Your expectations are cages in disguise. You've worn them for so long, you hardly notice. The idea that life should be fair, that people should behave a certain way, that plans should unfold neatly, and effort should always be rewarded. They whisper quietly in your mind, "This isn't how it was supposed to go." And that phrase, "supposed to," is the beginning of suffering. You remember when you worked hard on something, a project, a relationship, maybe even yourself, and the outcome didn't match the effort. You were good, you were clear, you were kind. And still, it didn't work out. And the pain wasn't just from the result, it was from the expectation. This is where Epictetus, the former slave turned philosopher, steps in. He said, "It's not things themselves that trouble us, but our opinions about them. And expectations. They're just opinions that have put on armor, but armor gets heavy. So tonight, we practice loosening it. Imagine waking up tomorrow and removing all expectations for how the day should unfold. You don't assume ease. You don't demand fairness. You don't expect applause. You just show up with effort but not attachment. Feels lighter already, doesn't it? This is one of the most powerful moves a Stoic makes, detaching effort from outcome. Not in a cold way, in a free way. You still care, you still act, but you stop gripping. You stop believing the world owes you a return. It doesn't. And in that space, where obligation drops away, something curious happens: peace appears. That meeting that gets canceled, no longer a crisis. That person who lets you down, no longer a villain. That dream that bends or breaks, no longer a verdict. Because your sense of meaning wasn't hanging from those outcomes. It was rooted in your intention. You begin to see that most frustrations in life come from trying to force the world to match your internal script. But the world hasn't read your script. It has its own. And sometimes it's funnier than yours. That's the quiet comedy of being human. You want life to be tidy, but it's gloriously uncooperative. It spills, it interrupts, it rewrites. And when you stop fighting that, you start dancing with it. There's a historical story worth remembering here. Cleans, one of the early Stoics, worked by night as a water carrier, hauling heavy loads up steep streets so he could afford to study philosophy by day. People mocked him. Why would a man of wisdom lower himself like that? He didn't mind. He had no expectation of ease, no illusion of praise. His peace came from purpose, not approval. Could you do that? Could you live your day with full attention but no demand for reward? That's stoicism. That's freedom. Of course, part of you might protest. But shouldn't we want good things? Shouldn't we expect kindness, decency, fairness? Yes, you can want, you can hope, but wanting is not the same as demanding. The Stoic doesn't kill desire, they clarify it. They remove the poison of insistence. You can want someone to treat you well and still be steady when they don't. You can hope for success and still be whole without it. You can plan for tomorrow and still bow to what tomorrow actually brings. That's not passivity, that's power. There's an odd freedom in not needing life to go your way. It doesn't make you cynical, it makes you resilient. Because when you stop expecting the world to be a reflection of your preferences, you start seeing it as it is, chaotic, mysterious, beautiful in its randomness. And strangely, that makes you kinder. Yes, kinder. When you're not trapped by expectations, you stop punishing others for failing them. That friend who didn't call, that partner who missed the signal, that stranger who was rude. You stop writing stories around their actions. You just see what's there. And that softens you. The Stoics often debated whether this kind of detachment could make someone cold. But what they found, and what you feel now, is the opposite. The less you cling, the more love can move through you. Because love that expects is possession, but love that accepts, that's grace. So tonight, release one expectation, just one, maybe something small, that you'll fall asleep quickly or wake up refreshed. Let it go. And notice what remains when the pressure lifts. Just this breath, warmth, stillness. You. Enough. You're getting used to this rhythm now, the gentle unspooling of thoughts like a thread being pulled loose from an old garment you no longer need. You lie there lighter, maybe not fully free but closer. And tonight we return to the idea that's been quietly waiting behind every breath you've taken so far. You own nothing, not even yourself. Let that sink in. You own nothing. It sounds harsh at first, but listen carefully and it starts to sound like release. Because the things you grip, your time, your body, your plans, they aren't truly yours. Not in the way you imagine. They are on loan, all of them. That includes your successes, your relationships, even your thoughts. Marcus Aurelius called it the borrowed body. He knew that the skin he wore, the bones that held him up, the voice he spoke with, none of it was permanent. None of it belonged to him forever. He was just using it for a while. And when you live like a borrower, not an owner, you treat things differently, with care, with reverence, but not with greed. You stop clutching. Look around your life, your home, your clothes, your routines. How many of them feel like anchors? How many things have you told yourself you need, but you don't, not really? Seneca, who once had immense wealth and lost it all, said he found the most peace not in luxury but in simplicity. He called it the joy of sufficiency. Having enough, not in quantity but in attitude. Tonight you feel that. The softness of your pillow, the quiet around you, the simple miracle of having this moment. It's enough. And the absurdity returns like a gentle smirk from the cosmos. We spend so much of life trying to accumulate what we'll eventually have to give back. We act like we're building empires, but we're just visitors, brief ones. So why grip? This isn't to say you shouldn't have things, or goals, or beauty. You can enjoy all of it. But only if you hold it the way you'd hold a snowflake, delicately, knowing it's melting even as you admire it. That's the practice. Learning to live as a temporary steward, not a permanent possessor. There's a strange dignity in that. You stop trying to bend the world to your will. You start listening to what it wants to teach you. You've probably noticed this in small moments before, when you let go of a plan that wasn't working, when you forgave someone instead of holding the grudge, when you gave something away that you thought you couldn't live without and realized you were fine, more than fine, you were free. There's an old story about Diogenes, the wild Stoic who lived in a barrel. He once saw a child drinking water from his hands and immediately threw away his own cup, saying, "A child has beaten me in simplicity." You laugh quietly. What would it be like to live like that? Not in poverty, but in enoughness. You already know the more you own, the more owns you. The car needs maintenance. The house needs cleaning. The reputation needs defending. The identity needs polishing. And none of it is wrong. But you begin to understand the cost of it. Because the most expensive thing you can pay in life is attention. And what you give your attention to becomes your God. Tonight you shift that attention inward, not toward your ego but toward your essence. The part of you that doesn't need praise, that doesn't fear decline, that doesn't depend on possessions to know its worth. That's your inner citadel. Epictetus spoke of it often. That even if you lose everything, even if your body fails, even if your freedom is taken, you still have your mind, your ability to choose your response, your power to think, to accept, to decide. But even that is on loan. One day your mind will grow quiet, your body will slow, your name will fade, and strangely that's okay. Because you were never here to possess, you were here to experience, to love, to wonder, to stumble, to rest. So as you lie here tonight, repeat this to yourself gently: I own nothing, and in that I have everything I need. Let the breath slow now. Let the grip loosen. You don't have to protect what was never yours to begin with. You're just passing through, gracefully, hopefully, with open hands. The silence tonight feels deeper, like a well without a bottom. And in it, a new thought echoes softly. You've been acting like time belongs to you. It doesn't. You've been living as though your days are a savings account, that you can store hours, defer moments, push off joy until conditions are perfect. But time is not stored. It's spilled. Every second is already leaving. You know this, of course. But do you feel it? It's easy to forget. You plan, you prepare, you say maybe later. You tuck experiences away into a box marked someday. But what Stoicism asks, quietly, insistently, is this: what if someday never comes? Seneca wrote an entire letter to a friend with a single message. You are living like you have a lease on life, when in truth, it's a day-to-day rental. He called it the arrogance of assuming the future is guaranteed. But here's the thing. Facing that truth doesn't have to bring fear. It can bring focus. You start to treat time as the precious, fleeting currency it is. Not something to be hoarded, but something to be spent wisely, boldly, gently. You remember the times you said yes when you meant no. The hours you gave away to worry, the days blurred by distraction. And still here you are, still breathing, still able to choose again. This is the paradox. Knowing time is borrowed doesn't diminish its value, it increases it. Like sunlight breaking through a clouded morning, this realization shifts you. You stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "What matters now?" What brings clarity? What brings peace? What leaves you feeling more alive even in stillness? Sometimes that answer is action. Sometimes it's rest. Tonight it's reflection. You're not being asked to rush. You're being asked to wake up. Because even when you're lying still in bed, your life is moving. Time is passing. And you have the power, right now, to let that truth humble you, soften you, focus you. There's a story here. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, faced death constantly through war, illness, and the decay of those he loved. And yet he wrote not with panic but presence. His meditations are filled with lines like, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do, say, and think. Not in a morbid way, in a clarifying way. What if this were your last night? Would you still hold that grudge? Still cling to that grating sense of not being enough? Still worry about what strangers think? Or would you let it all go, not out of despair, but out of wisdom? You are here, tonight, for reasons you may never fully understand. But in this moment, your presence is your power. There's a curious comfort in realizing your time isn't yours. It turns every moment into a gift, especially the ones that seem ordinary. That quiet hour before sleep, that breeze through the window, that sudden memory of a childhood laugh. You don't need fireworks, you need awareness. That's what the Stoics meant by memento mori, remember death. Not to darken life, but to illuminate it. Because when you remember that time is borrowed, you stop squandering it on petty things, on complaints, on perfectionism, on waiting. You begin instead to cherish even the mess, even the loss, even the ache, because it's all real. And realness, even when raw, is sacred. So tonight, lie here not as someone entitled to time, but as someone honored by it. Let go of the illusion that tomorrow is guaranteed. Let go of the idea that fulfillment lives after the next thing. Let go of the pressure to make every moment productive. Time doesn't demand that you do more. It invites you to be more present. And when you are, you begin to see beauty where you once saw boredom. You begin to feel joy not as a destination, but as a side effect of presence. You don't need more time. You need more attention to the time you already have. So sink into this one now, the breath, the stillness, the rising and falling of your chest, all of it borrowed, all of it beautiful. You're floating now, not through sleep quite yet, but through something quieter, something deeper. The world is softer in this space, edges blurred, thoughts fewer. But one rises gently through the stillness. Control is not power, acceptance is. You've been taught the opposite for most of your life. That to be strong is to be in control. That to master circumstances is to master fate. That your value is tied to your ability to manage everything, your emotions, your schedule, your surroundings, even other people. But how's that worked out? Has control brought you peace? Or has it made you tired? You've tried to organize your days, plan your future, protect your heart. And yet the unexpected always arrives, delays, detours, betrayals, breakdowns. It's exhausting, isn't it? And here Stoicism offers a radical invitation. Stop controlling what was never yours to control. Epictetus called this the first discipline, to clearly separate what's up to you and what isn't. Your thoughts, yours. Your actions, yours. Your opinions, yours. But everything else, your health, your reputation, the weather, other people's behavior, that's not your domain. It sounds simple, but living this way is a lifetime's work. Because your ego wants to grip. It wants to be the architect of every outcome, the director of every scene. But the Stoic knows, you're not the director, you're the actor, and your job is to perform your role well, no matter how the story unfolds. Think of a time you tried to change someone. You reasoned, you pleaded, maybe even manipulated. And maybe they changed, or maybe they didn't. But how much of your peace did it cost you? Now think of a time you accepted someone as they were, not passively but fully, without resistance. Maybe it was a parent or a partner or even yourself. Remember how that felt. That's the freedom of relinquishing control. And that doesn't mean giving up. It means showing up fully, wisely, with clarity and knowing where your power ends. There's a gentle paradox here, another wink from the Stoics. The less you try to control, the more influence you often have. Because people feel the difference between control and presence. Presence listens, control lectures, presence creates space. Control suffocates, presence invites change. Control demands it. When you stop trying to force the river, you start to flow with it. There's a moment in Marcus Aurelius's writings where he talks about being stuck in bed with illness. He doesn't curse the gods. He doesn't moan about fairness. He simply observes, even here I can choose how I think. Even here, that's the mantra. Even here when the meeting goes wrong. When the person you trusted lets you down. When the weather ruins your plans. When your body aches. When the news is grim. Even here you still have power. Not over the storm, but over your response to it. That's real strength. Quiet, rooted, unshakable. And you feel it now, don't you? This isn't about being passive, it's about being wise. The Stoic doesn't drift, they steer with focus in the direction of virtue, but they don't scream at the wind. They adjust their sails. Tonight, let go of something small. Maybe it's the frustration you've been holding on to, The way someone talked to you earlier or how a plan fell apart. Or maybe it's the old story you keep telling yourself about how life should have gone. Release it. You're not giving up. You're giving in to what is. That's not weakness. That's harmony. It's funny in a soft sort of way how much energy you've spent trying to predict, prevent, and perfect. And how much more peace comes when you simply accept. Even the difficulty. Even the delay. Even the mystery. You're not here to control the script. You're here to act your part with integrity, to speak your lines with truth, and to bow gracefully when the scene ends. And when you live that way, within the bounds of your influence, clear on what's yours and what's not, something beautiful happens. You stop being reactive. You become responsive. You stop grasping. You start flowing. You stop resisting life. And life begins to trust you. The breath has become quieter now, like waves lapping gently against the shore of your awareness. You're still here, still listening, but something inside has shifted. You're softer, more porous, more awake. And into that space comes a new idea. Expectation is the architect of disappointment. You already know this truth. You felt it each time something didn't go the way you imagined. The movie wasn't as good as the trailer. The relationship didn't match the picture in your mind. The job, the vacation, even the weekend didn't quite deliver. But what if the problem isn't the world, but your expectations of it? Stoics weren't against joy or hope, but they were deeply suspicious of assumption, that quiet voice that says, things should be different, or worse, things should go my way. You've heard that voice. It sounds harmless, even reasonable, but it's the seed of suffering, because as soon as you attach your peace to an outcome, you make it fragile. Seneca wrote about this with striking clarity. If you expect something to be as it always has been, you're a fool. The universe has no obligation to your pattern. It sounds harsh, but it's freeing. Because the moment you stop expecting the world to behave a certain way, you open yourself to the way it actually is. You stop demanding, and you start discovering. Think back to a time when something unexpected turned out better than your plan. A missed train that led to a meaningful conversation. A rejection that cleared the way for something better. A detour that gave you a new perspective. That wasn't failure. That was life unfiltered. You may laugh now. How often have you thought, this shouldn't be happening, only to realize later it was exactly what needed to happen? Expectation blinds you to reality, but acceptance sharpens your vision. This doesn't mean you stop making plans. Stoics planned all the time, but they planned with detachment, like someone writing on sand, knowing the tide will come. And when it comes, they don't curse the sea. They smile, erase the marks, and write again. You feel that spirit now. You remember Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, woken in the middle of the night by bad news, an attack, a betrayal, a storm. And how he simply noted, in his journal, it was always going to happen this way. No drama, no why me, just clarity. What if you could respond like that? You'd stop needing people to act a certain way. You'd stop needing the day to unfold exactly on time. You'd stop measuring life against your imaginary checklist. Instead, you'd meet each moment with curiosity. Oh, this is what's happening now. Interesting. Let me adjust. Expectation says, this wasn't the plan. Wisdom says, so this is the plan now. Here's the paradox. The more tightly you hold your expectations, the more often you'll feel the sting of disappointment. But the more you let go, the more beauty surprises you. Because it was there all along. You just couldn't see it behind the veil of your shoulds and oughts. Tonight, you loosen that veil. You let the next moment arrive without a script. You let people be exactly who they are without editing them in your mind. You let yourself feel, without judging what you feel. And slowly, the absurdity returns again, like a familiar smile. You've spent so much time trying to predict and prepare for a life that never promised predictability. And yet here you are, breathing, listening, learning to stop bracing against the unknown and learning to welcome it. That's courage. Not the kind that fights dragons, but the kind that walks into the fog without needing to see the end of the path. Because peace isn't found in certainty, it's found in surrender. So tonight, let this be your quiet mantra. I release expectation. I embrace experience. You're not here to manipulate outcomes. You're here to meet them with grace, even the messy ones, especially the messy ones, so breathe. Let go, trust the tide. It's carried wiser people than you, and it will carry you too. You're drifting deeper now, not just into sleep, but into something steadier, something that's always been there beneath the noise, a knowing. And tonight, that knowing whispers. You don't need more, you need less. Less noise, less proving, less chasing. You've been conditioned to accumulate not just possessions, but achievements, experiences, validations, to fill every moment, to measure your worth by the size of your calendar or the weight of your productivity. But the Stoics would ask, at what cost? You only have so much time, so much attention, so much inner space, and yet you scatter it across 1,000 things, most of them unimportant, most of them forgotten tomorrow. The clutter isn't just on your desk, it's in your mind. There's a story of Cleans, one of the early Stoic philosophers who worked as a water carrier by night and studied by day. His life was simple, almost stark, but his clarity was immense. He needed very little to live and even less to feel content, not because he lacked ambition, but because he had direction, and direction is what clears the fog. You've seen this in your own life, haven't you? The peace that comes when you simplify, when you stop trying to do everything and choose to do one thing well, when you clean out a drawer, when you say no, when you sit in stillness without needing to be entertained. That's not laziness, that's wisdom, because to live simply isn't to live small, it's to live clearly. You feel it in this moment. The less you try to grasp, the more you can hold. The less you try to prove, the more you can be. The less you speak, the more you hear. Modern life rarely encourages this. It asks you to perform, to optimize, to self-brand. It whispers you're falling behind. It tells you that every idle moment is a wasted opportunity. But Stoicism counters. Every idle moment is a chance to return to what matters, to who you are, to what's truly yours. And paradoxically, it's when you stop striving that your path becomes clearer. Let that be your gentle rebellion tonight. You don't need to do more. You need to strip away what's unnecessary, like a sculptor chiseling away everything that isn't the statue. That's what Marcus Aurelius did with his days. He cut out gossip, indulgence, distraction, not because he was cold, but because he was focused. He understood that simplicity is not deprivation, it's liberation. So what can you let go of tonight? Not forever, just for now. Maybe it's the mental list of what still needs doing. Maybe it's the comparison you've been dragging behind you. Maybe it's the imagined argument playing on loop in your head. Set it down. In this quiet space, you don't need to hold it all. You're not meant to, because when you let go of the excess, something sacred returns, attention. You start to notice the rhythm of your breath, the softness of your blanket, the subtle hum of the world around you. You become more alive, not less. The Stoics didn't escape the world, they engaged with it deeply. But they did so with clarity, like a clear lens that brings reality into focus. You can live that way too, not by retreating but by refining, not by rejecting the world but by choosing how you meet it. Tonight you begin with this: less noise, more stillness, less striving, more presence. You're not behind, you're not missing out, you're arriving, fully. So as your eyes grow heavier, let this truth settle into your bones: you already have what you need. You don't need more to be whole, you need less to see that you are. Let go again. Let what remains be the foundation of your peace. Somewhere between awareness and sleep, you hover like a leaf caught in gentle wind. The world outside dims. The world within stretches wider, softer. And in this stillness another quiet truth surfaces: death is not the end, it's a mirror. It sounds strange to say this at bedtime, but the Stoics would insist. There's no better time to reflect on mortality than when the day is fading. Not as fear, not as darkness, but as clarity. Because when you remember you will die, you remember what matters. You remember how brief, how precious, how astonishingly fragile this moment is. Seneca called it the ultimate teacher. He wrote, Let us prepare our minds as if we had come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day, not as a morbid practice, but as a way of waking up. And you feel that now, don't you? Death, in the Stoic view, isn't something that will happen. It's something already happening. Time is passing. Cells are aging. The world is turning. Every breath is one breath less. But there's no sadness in that, only perspective. Because once you stop pretending life is infinite, you start treating it as sacred. You no longer waste time arguing over trivial things. You stop postponing joy. You stop waiting for the perfect moment to begin what your soul is already asking for. You realize this is your life, not tomorrow, not next year. Now, there's a story of Epictetus teaching a student who feared death. The student asked, "How can I live without constantly being afraid of the end?" And Epictetus replied, "You are already dying every day, but have you noticed? You are also living." It's that balance between death as a certainty and life as a gift that sharpens the present moment into something luminous. You're not guaranteed anything beyond this breath, and yet you have this breath. How miraculous! The Stoics practice something called memento mori, the remembrance of death. Not to grow anxious, but to grow wise. They would imagine this was their last night, their last walk, their last sunrise, and they'd ask themselves, would I live differently if I truly knew that? You can ask that now. If this were your final evening, what would matter? Who would you forgive? What would you stop worrying about? That's not just a question for philosophers. That's a compass for anyone who wants to live awake. You've likely spent time trying to outrun death in some way, by staying busy, staying young, staying distracted. But the Stoics didn't run. They sat quietly and looked. And in doing so, they discovered something unexpected. The more you embrace your mortality, the less it frightens you, and the more alive you feel. You stop sleepwalking through your hours. You start listening more carefully, laughing more fully, loving more openly. You begin to mean it, not just in your words, but in the way you show up for your life. Even now, with the day behind you, you can feel a soft shift, the edge of urgency melting into presence, the pressure to achieve replaced with the desire to experience. Not everything needs to be grand. Some of the most meaningful moments are the quietest. A look, a gesture, the warmth of a hand. You're allowed to cherish them. And paradoxically, the more you do, the less you fear losing them. Because they're not meant to last. They're meant to be seen. You may chuckle at the irony. The very thing we try to avoid thinking about is the thing that gives life its flavor. Without death, time would be meaningless. Without endings, beginnings would be hollow. And so death becomes not an enemy but an advisor. It whispers, live now, not later, not after everything is perfect. Now. Tonight you listen. Not with dread, with gratitude. You look gently at the mirror death offers, not to mourn but to remember what it reflects, the beauty of now. So breathe into that. Feel the gift of this night, of this quiet, of this breath. And let this thought guide you toward sleep. I do not fear the end. I honor the moment. Because in honoring the moment, you honor all of life. And what greater freedom is there than that? Tonight, there's less resistance, fewer edges. The tension you carried in your jaw, your hands, your heart, it's softened. The current beneath you holds you more gently now. And into this gentleness, another truth drifts forward. You are not your emotions. It's tempting to believe you are. That when anger rises, you are angry. That when sadness settles, you are sad. That anxiety, fear, shame, all of it is somehow you. But that's not true, that's just habit. The Stoics taught that emotions are like weather. They move through. They arrive, swirl, dissipate. Sometimes they linger. Sometimes they surprise you. But none of them define you. You've watched a storm roll in, haven't you? Dark clouds, sudden wind, and then in a few hours, blue sky again. You never once believed the sky had become the storm. You knew the sky was still there, vast, unchanged, behind all of it. You are the sky. Your emotions are the weather. This is what Epictetus meant when he said, it's not events that disturb you, but your judgments about them. He wasn't denying pain. He was reminding you that between stimulus and reaction, there's a space. And in that space is your power. You can feel angry without being anger. You can feel afraid without becoming fear. You can observe your emotions like a philosopher with a candle, holding them up to the light, turning them, learning from them. That's what Marcus Aurelius did when his generals betrayed him, when his son disappointed him, when his body failed him. He didn't suppress his feelings. He examined them. He asked, is this emotion helpful or harmful? Is it true or just familiar? You can ask the same. Like earlier today, maybe you felt irritation flicker when someone interrupted you, or sadness when a memory surfaced, or shame when you stumbled over your words. Notice how fast your mind labeled it. I'm so impatient. I'm so weak. I'm not enough, but those are just thoughts. They're not facts. What if you could hold each emotion like a guest, greet it, learn from it, and let it pass? The Stoics believed this wasn't just possible, it was essential. Because if you're ruled by your emotions, you're not free. And freedom to them was the ultimate good. Not the kind that comes from wealth or status, but the kind that comes from inner steadiness. From knowing that no matter what storm arises, the sky of your being remains untouched. You can start to practice that tonight. As feelings drift in, restlessness, longing, warmth, grief, don't push them away. Don't grab them either. Just watch. Observe the sensation in your body. Observe the story your mind tries to tell. Then gently ask, is this mine? Or is this just passing through? The answer doesn't need to be immediate. In fact, the longer you wait, the clearer it often becomes. You may smile now, remembering how many times you believed a fleeting mood was permanent. How many times you made decisions based on how you felt in the moment, only to regret them later. The Stoics weren't immune to that. They were human too, but they practiced returning to the stillness underneath, to reason, to choice. And that's available to you now, not as a denial of emotion, but as a deeper relationship with it. You are not a puppet on the strings of your feelings. You are the one who notices the strings, who decides which ones to follow and which to release. Even now, maybe a subtle emotion rises, tenderness perhaps, or fatigue, or awe. Let it rise, let it pass. You're learning not to fear the waves. You're learning to surf them. You're learning that emotions are messengers, not masters, that they don't need to be fixed, controlled, or solved, just acknowledged. And that awareness, that pause, that breath in between, that is your freedom. So rest now, sky beneath the weather. Let it all pass. Let it all be. And if anything lingers, hold it like you would a bird in your palm, lightly, respectfully, with wonder. Because tonight you remember, I feel emotions, but I am not my emotions. That truth is enough. That truth is peace. There's a certain silence that comes after emotional waves have passed, a stillness not of absence but of presence. You feel it now like sitting beside a sleeping ocean, calm but powerful. And from this stillness arises tonight's reflection. You own nothing. And that's a gift. It sounds unsettling at first. After all, much of life revolves around ownership. Your car, your job, your home, your time, your ideas, even your relationships spoken of as mine. But what if none of it truly belongs to you? The Stoics were clear on this. Everything you think you possess is merely on loan from the universe. Your body, your money, your status, even your loved ones, they are gifts, not guarantees. You don't own them, you simply get to be with them. For a while. Seneca often reminded his students that fortune gives and takes without warning. That clinging to things guarantees sorrow, not because loss is cruel, but because attachment is rigid. And rigidity breaks, flexibility bends. You might recall a moment from your life when something you depended on, something you thought would always be there, vanished. A relationship, a job, a sense of identity. It felt like the world had betrayed you. But over time, didn't you also find something else waiting underneath? A strange kind of freedom. That's what happens when you loosen your grip. You don't become careless, you become careful, able to appreciate without clutching, able to hold lightly and love deeply. There's a story of Emperor Hadrian visiting the philosopher Epictetus. The emperor asked, if I took everything from you, your home, your books, your students, what would remain? And Epictetus answered, Only what cannot be taken, my reason, my character, and my freedom. That's what the Stoics treasured most. The inner citadel. Not the walls outside, but the walls within. Not what could be counted, but what could not be taken. You can begin to feel that truth now. Your possessions, they may bring ease, but they don't bring peace. Your status, it may earn applause, but it doesn't give meaning. Even your relationships, as sacred as they are, cannot be owned. You can love someone without possessing them. You can honor someone without expecting permanence. Because love doesn't mean forever, it means fully. And if you're willing to let go of control, you gain something better, clarity. You begin to see life as a series of moments you're entrusted with, not entitled to. Each breath, a gift. Each word spoken, borrowed time. Each face you meet, a visitor on their own journey. This doesn't mean you love less. It means you love with more courage. To love someone deeply while knowing they might leave or change or die, that's brave. That's alive. The Stoics didn't avoid attachment, they refined it. They aimed for connection without captivity, involvement without illusion. You can do the same. You may laugh at the paradox of it. The less you cling, the more fully you receive. Because when you're not trying to hold on, your hands are open, and open hands are ready for wonder. So take a moment now. Look inward. What are you holding tightly? What do you fear losing? And can you imagine placing it gently in the open palm of your awareness, still there, still loved, but no longer chained to permanence? That doesn't mean letting go of care. It means letting go of illusion. Because nothing outside of you is truly yours, and yet everything within you is. Your choices, your presence, your ability to love, that's where your wealth lies. So tonight, let that awareness soothe you. Let it unclench the fists of your mind. You own nothing, and that means you have nothing to lose, only experiences to witness, love to offer, and grace to receive. You are a traveler here. Let every step be light. Let every goodbye be soft. Let every possession be handled with reverence, not for its permanence but for its passing beauty. As you drift deeper, let this be your silent vow. I take nothing for granted, and everything as a gift. Sleep easy, empty-handed. You are rich beyond measure. You've already let go of so much tonight. Noise, urgency, ownership. The world is quieter now, both inside and out. And from that quiet, something subtle rises, like steam curling from a cup in your hands. Your expectations are cages. Not all cages have bars. Some are built from invisible hopes, imagined timelines, silent comparisons. I should be further by now. They should have treated me better. This wasn't supposed to happen. Sound familiar? The Stoics understood this deeply, that much of your suffering doesn't come from life itself, but from the gap between reality and your expectations of it. There's the life that unfolds, and then there's the story you wanted it to tell. When those two don't match, discomfort appears, frustration, disappointment, resentment. But what if the gap isn't the problem? What if the story is? Marcus Aurelius reminded himself over and over. Don't demand that events happen as you wish. Wish them to happen as they do. Not because he was passive, but because he understood the danger of wishing the river flowed a different way. You've stood in that current, haven't you? Trying to push against it with your thoughts. This shouldn't be this way. I should have known. They should have seen. But reality doesn't argue. It just is. And your expectations, they're just thoughts, temporary sketches of how you hope the world would behave. When you mistake those sketches for truth, you suffer. There's a subtle humor in it, isn't there? We expect people to be logical when they're not. We expect plans to unfold neatly when life is a scribble. We expect ourselves to always be strong, composed, productive, when we're human. The Stoics didn't banish expectations. They simply questioned them. They asked, is this fair? Is this helpful? Is this within my control? If not, they released it. Not without care, but without illusion. Take Epictetus again, born into slavery, crippled young, mocked, misunderstood. He could have expected fairness. He could have raged, but he chose something radical. To adjust his expectations instead of demanding the world adjust to him. You can do that too. You can notice the tightness in your chest when someone doesn't text back, The rising heat when a driver cuts you off. The sinking heart when your efforts go unnoticed. And instead of clinging to what should be, you can meet what is. Not as defeat, as freedom. Because when you let go of expectations, you stop needing the world to behave a certain way in order for you to be at peace. You create peace within instead. Try it now. Think of one place in your life where your expectations have created tension. A relationship, a career milestone, your own healing. Now gently release the should. Breathe into what's real. Not forever, just for now. Let reality speak without your commentary. You might feel a sudden lightness, or sadness, or strange relief. It's okay. Because you're learning that acceptance is not resignation, it's alignment. You don't stop working, you stop wishing. You don't stop caring, you stop clinging. The Stoics would say, adjust your sails, not the wind. You begin to do that now, not perfectly, but consciously. And in that small shift, a new kind of strength emerges. You become less reactive, less rigid, less imprisoned by invisible bars. You start to live with what some call amor fati, a love of fate. Not just enduring what happens, but embracing it. Not just tolerating the unexpected, but finding beauty in its shape. You may laugh gently at how hard you once gripped a plan that never arrived. And yet here you are, still breathing, still growing, still here. Perhaps not where you expected to be, but maybe exactly where you're meant to be. So as the night deepens and your mind drifts, remember this simple, soft thought. I free myself from what I thought should happen, and I welcome what is. Let the cage dissolve. Let your breath be your guide. Let your peace come not from control, but from release. And now, with your expectations melting like mist from a morning field, something curious arrives. Even your identity is not fixed. You've called yourself so many names. You've worn labels like jackets, some tailored, some handed down, some too tight. Student, leader, failure, survivor, overthinker, too much, not enough. But what if none of them are true, or rather, what if they're all temporary? The Stoics believe that identity is fluid, that who you are is not a static role but a series of unfolding choices, that your essence isn't in what you call yourself, but in how you live. This might feel disorienting at first. After all, you've built your story carefully. You've introduced yourself countless times with titles, backstories, curated traits, but deep down, haven't you always suspected that you're more than any of them? You are not your resume. Not your past mistakes, not your traumas, not your wins, not your habits, not even your thoughts. You are the one observing them. You are the actor behind the mask. And when you forget that, suffering creeps in. The Stoic philosopher Cleans once compared the mind to a tablet, clean at birth, then etched over with impressions. But those impressions aren't permanent. They can be examined, reshaped, even erased. Who you think you are can be questioned. That moment earlier today when you called yourself lazy or awkward or broken, that wasn't truth. That was reflex. So much of what you believe about yourself was never your idea to begin with. It was absorbed, modeled, repeated until it stuck. But Stoicism gives you a chisel, not to destroy the sculpture but to refine it, to carve away what's not yours, to shape what reflects your deeper self. Take Marcus Aurelius again. Emperor, philosopher, general. Father, he could have let any of those roles define him. But instead, he returned each day to one core identity, a student of virtue, not a perfect man, a practicing one. You can choose that too. Right now, tonight, you are allowed to change. You can decide you are no longer the anxious one or the angry one or the one who always says yes. You can shed that identity not with force, but with awareness. You are not cement. You are clay, and clay in the hands of reflection becomes art. Consider this: if a thought arises, I always sabotage good things, you can pause, observe it, ask, is this true? Or is this familiar? You're allowed to outgrow the roles you once needed to survive. Maybe you needed to be the caretaker, the achiever, the one who never cried, the one who never asked. But that was then. Now you can be something else. Someone gentler, someone firmer, someone honest, someone curious. Identity isn't a cage, it's a costume you get to change as you evolve. And yes, there's fear in that, Because who are you without your story? But there's also power. Because if you're not defined by what came before, then the future is soft clay too. You get to choose what virtues to strengthen, what habits to nourish, what name to answer to in your own mind. Stoicism doesn't ask you to erase yourself. It asks you to meet yourself beneath the noise, beyond the roles, behind the masks. Tonight, meet that self, the one untouched by shame, the one who watches, chooses, returns. Breathe into it. It's quieter there, more peaceful. No need to perform, no need to pretend. You're not a brand, you're not a story, you're not a problem to solve. You're a being in motion, guided by reason, capable of courage, compassion, and change. Let that be your identity now. I am a student of life, a sculptor of self, a witness of what unfolds. That's all you need. Let the rest go. Let the names fall away like leaves in wind. Let yourself rest, not as a role, but as a presence. You are already enough, not because of who you were, but because of who you are becoming. It's late now. The air is still. Your body has softened. The thoughts have slowed. And here at the edge of sleep, one final truth rises. You've always been living on borrowed time. From your first breath, the clock began, not as a threat, but as a reminder. You will not live forever, not in this form, not in this body, not with these names or these surroundings. And that is not a tragedy. It is the beginning of freedom. The Stoics said, Memento mori, remember death, not to fear it, but to honor life. You remember now all those small moments you brushed past, the sunlight on your cheek as you walked home, the scent of rain on the street before it poured, the warmth in a friend's voice when they said your name without hurry. Tiny things, forgettable things, but they shimmer now, don't they? Because they were part of your borrowed time. Seneca said, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. And yet you're not wasting this moment now. You are here. You are awake to the truth that nothing is promised, and that's what makes everything precious. This is not a morbid thought, it's a tender one. Death is not your enemy, it's your context. It gives shape to your days. It sculpts meaning into your actions. And when you accept that you are a traveler, not a settler, you begin to move differently, more aware, more grateful, more aligned. You stop sleepwalking through routines. You stop delaying your joy. You stop postponing your peace. The Stoics did not fear death because they practiced it, in thought, in contemplation, in gratitude. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, even as emperor, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. It wasn't gloom, it was grounding. Tonight, let it ground you too. Let it strip away the false urgency, the clutter, the performance. You don't need to be perfect before the end comes. You just need to be present, to live fully in the time you've been given, whether it's decades more or just this moment right here, cradled in quiet. No one can predict how long they have, but everyone can decide how deeply they live. So now take one more breath and say to yourself softly, I release the need to delay my life. No more waiting for the perfect time. No more rehearsing for a version of you that never arrives. No more withholding joy until you've earned it. You've already been given the most extraordinary gift, awareness of your own mortality. And that means everything is illuminated, even this breath, even this silence, even this night. Let's stay here a little longer, letting time dissolve, letting thought drift, letting all the noise sink beneath the surface. And from this quiet place, return to the simplest truths. You are alive. You are impermanent. You are free. Let those truths settle in your chest like a lantern, soft and flickering. And now, let us begin to drift down, even deeper, into the final winding down of the journey. Wind down.